Okay, so let me move this around for myself. That'll work. Sorry, I have an overlay. So essentially what I do is first and foremost I clear my background. I'll be sending you a template, but right now I'm going to clear my background. And that's going to be mask, whatever click you have. So this is right click, that's left click, I'm sure you know. G for paint bucket. Continuous means you can take away just the piece that's connecting. Unclick continuous, that's colors all over. So if you have any duplicate important colors, you might not want to do that. Oops, yeah, see like that right there, the white. So I'm gonna send you Dupli. This is the man. I have this character specifically at the resolutions we had before upscaling. And the reason why I've kept it that way is it's so much easier to edit this than it is something on a bigger scale. Because then I'll just export it 200%. Boom, you have a new sprite that's the same size as everything with this sort of resolution. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so now that that's done, you'll determine what your center point is. For Dupli, it's kind of right about here. See, I have this after shadow effect for the nose. I'll give you a very quick tutorial on color theory. So, this bar here determines the color, the shade kind of the color, but color nonetheless. Okay? Inside of this color, which is referred to as a hue, you have values and you have contrast. So value and contrast. Value, contrast, saturation. Um, Saturation, contrast, value. Alright? Value down, contrast left, saturation right. You'll take whatever hue that you want from Dupli. You know, there's a nice selection of skin tones. Specifically in, if you go to presets, you can scroll down to Google UI. You'll load that one up. And it has a good amount of skin colors here. You can kind of mix and match, do whatever. Make Dupli a little bit darker all over. Yeah, all you really need to pay attention to is what your defining color is and what your accent colors are going to be. So for Dupli here, you have these little accent colors that give shadow and a little bit darker underneath the eyes. Um, well, I'll start by editing him just a little bit. Um, so let's say that we're going to go beardless. We'll take this, continuous. This is all going to turn back to skin color. That is horrifying. But let's say we're going to do a lumberjack. Alright, this guy looks completely different than Dupli. We can select a skin color, or a new eye color. And you can now kind of play with the forms. And you can kind of just play with that as you want. So, for instance, I would personally I'd bring up to this neck color if I'm going to change his chin. Right. So now his chin's changed. We can drag this over and down. And now he has... Oh, that's ugly. Okay. So now he has like this rounded out feature here. And then if I wanted to add another accent nose to this guy, I would take this. I would take this skin tone. And I would drop it down slightly, just so slightly, saturate it, and then I would draw it in. Something real simple, probably higher up. You know, just something to give the impression. What pixel art essentially is impressionism. So if you know anything about that, it's really the same thing. Um, you know, from there now we have this guy. You can go through. Just make sure whatever you do, you're gonna want to avoid jaggies. Jaggies are, you know, those guys. You know, jaggies are things that look jagged. This would be a jaggy. This would be a perfect line. Pixel Perfect helps that out over here. So when you're doing forms, just pay attention to what the face is. The eyes would line up with the ears, if there were ears. In between the eyes would line up the nose, and then directly underneath the nose you have your mouth. From your center point of your nose, you'd follow that down, kind of press into the chest here. You can draw it out. I like to draw it out if I'm doing a new character. So I would draw it out. I would go from the nose. I like to use 3 actually. 3, because you can kind of click it around. So 3, I'd figure out that. And then from what the ears would be, that's where the shoulders start to curve down. Right? So as you can see, curves down, and then in betweenst, you can draw them in. Right? Real easy. You can play with the form of Dupli. You can make the hands look however. Try to eliminate using a lot of detail because it just gets painstakingly hard after a while. When you're doing shadows on under effects like this, you want to look for midtones. Right? So here I have this skin pigment. Up here I have a freaking black. Here I have this bluish gray. And then here I have this again. So if you look between all of these, you'll see some form of correlation of how the shadows and the highlights and the borders are used. So here and here, right there and right there, pushing into a red tone mid all this. Hopefully that makes sense. Pushing into the orange, making it lighter right there. Right for that. Pushing into the contrast. Sorry. And then for a darker border, all the way into red, we're looking for a brown basically at this point. And that'd be all the way into the red, make it dark. And what really helps me determine what the color could really be is if you look into this curve, right? That curve right there really helps sell the point of what color you're about to select. So if I were to make Dupli lighter in shade, so I would probably push into the orange a little bit, drag it down here, and pay attention here and mostly here, and you can really get a good feel. That looks pretty close to what we already have. Probably a little bit darker. A little darker, kind of ugly. Make it lighter. Go back into the red, scroll it down. Alright, now he's lighter. Continues this off. Even I still play with it a little bit just to get a good turn. So now that you have that done, you can now select his true skin color, and you can check that mid-tone again. See? Now you can correlate what is what. And we would also make this probably a little bit more contrasted just because he's so pale now. And same thing for these colors. Alright. And playing with everything is playing with form. There's no crazy thing about it. If it looks right, it looks right to you. You don't have to follow this format. It's what works for me. And the biggest thing is you will develop your own style in time. You just really have to stick at it. But this is what works for me. And look at reference photos. I always will have, oh, I can't pull it up right now, but I do have reference photos that I like to use, and I have them side by side. Maybe I have something quickly available. No. I can't seem to find it. Reference. It's probably here somewhere, and I'm missing it. Either way, I have a reference photo up. I look at just straight up people. Um, that's what I do. I look for portraits online of actual people and the ideal pose that I want them in, and I then color match them. Gosh darn. So in Aseprite, I will be looking over at this and dotting the lines, so to speak. I'll be doing like this to see if I'm matching. Like let's see. Let's like color match this right here, that blue. So if I were to do that, I would look here, try to find that hue. So that's pretty close. A little bit more into the blue, right there. And then I would start playing with it and getting something that's remarkably close. You know, probably a little bit lighter. And I'd play with them side by side until I got something that I really wanted. And probably this first one was really good. You know, just play with it. Um, I'll send you this. This is a little bit more bare bones. Um, and then yeah, if you don't have symmetry options open, just go here, view, show. Was it there? Show. Select frame there. Sprite edit preferences. No. One of these things allows you to. It's called symmetry mode. Symmetry options. It's this one right here. So you enable that right there in view. And that's also how I do the borders. I do the borders really easy with symmetry mode, because you can do some really neat stuff with that, especially on the horizontal. And I cut your work time in half. Alright, I'll go ahead and send this.